In part 5 of the lofted bed project, I'm going to build these guardrails. It's going to be a lot of work, so I better get started. To make the vertical slats for the guardrails, I started out by ripping a lot of 1x6s down to 2.5-inch strips. I need a total of 22 vertical slats for the bed, 11 for each side, along with a few extras in case I run into any issues. After cutting them to width at the table saw, I took them over to the router table to put a full round over onto both sides of the board. The height adjustment of my round over bit wasn't perfect, so I then ran each board through the planer to remove any grooves left from the round over being cut slightly too high on the board. The next step was to sand down any imperfections in the roundovers, as well as clean up any burn marks that got left on the wood. Finally, I cut the boards down to their final length of 13 inches at the miter saw. Once I had them cut the length, it was time to figure out a way to drill the dowel holes that would be used to attach them to the side rails. I had originally intended to use this self-centering doweling jig from Rockler, but it's designed to drill one hole at a time, and I realized that if I want to maintain a consistent distance between the two holes on each end, I would need to make a custom jig. You could definitely make that custom jig out of wood, but since I have a 3D printer, I decided to use it. This 3D printed custom jig will allow me to repeatedly drill the same pattern of holes onto each end of the vertical slats. Let's do it. Once I drilled all the dowel holes in the slats, I made trim pieces for the ends of the guardrails. These would be used to hide the seams where the rail meets the bedpost. I easily added dowel holes to these trim pieces using my Rockler self-centering doweling jig. Now that I've drilled the dowel holes in each of the vertical slats, it's time to make the corresponding holes in the upper and lower side rails. To do that, I've made these two jigs that will allow me to both space the two dowel holes properly, as well as correctly position the vertical slats. Now it was time to add the corresponding dowel holes for the square trim pieces using the same self-centering jig. You can find links to this jig and other tools that I've used in this video down in the description below. Finally, it was time to glue everything up, which was no easy task. I began by first gluing both dowels into the bottom of each slat. If you're enjoying this video, feel free to scroll down below and click that subscribe button. That way you won't miss out on any future videos in this series. Next, I switched to using a tight bond glue with an extended gluing time and started attaching slats to the lower side rail. Once they were attached to the lower rail, I added dowels to the top of each slat. Finally, it was time to get the upper rail attached while I could still adjust everything before the glue setup. It was definitely a lot of work to get everything lined up and coaxed together, but I finally got it done. If you have any suggestions on an easier way to do this assembly, I would love to hear them down in the comments below. Finally, I clamped everything up and left it all to dry for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it was time to remove the clamps and do some sanding. I'll do some final sanding at the end of the project, but for now I want to sand off any of my pencil marks from measuring, as well as any excess glue. Lastly, all I needed to do was install the guardrails into the bedposts. This took a little bit of work, but was extremely satisfying. Now that I've got the guardrails done, I'm starting to see the finish line on this project. I still need to make and install the slats that'll hold the mattress. I need to build a little shelf for the head of the bed, and I need to make some top plates for the head and the foot of the bed. Once that's done, it will just be sanding and finishing. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to scroll down below and click that like button. And while you're down there, if you click the subscribe button, you can follow along with all my future videos. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.